Of all the tanks of World War II, the Tiger 1 is the most well known of all of them. But is a Tiger really as good as it seems on paper? Or is it just another cog in Hitler's war machine? Well, let's find out. So let's go back to the very beginning. The Germans are invading France with their fast panzers, but they run into a problem. The Charbet one, the heaviest tank the French have. Also, at the time, it was also probably the heaviest tank. Their Panzer 38Ts, which weren't actually German, Panzer 3s, 4s, they couldn't pen it. Nothing could. Except for the infamous Flak 88, an anti aircraft gun. Not something you're exactly supposed to kill tags with, but it works extremely well. It even has an armor piercing round, I believe. Anyway, moving forward to Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia, the Germans run into even more problems with the heavily armored T-34 and KV-1, where the Russians quite literally just name everything with two letters and a number. So sorry, what was I? Oh yes. So a decision was made to make a heavy tank with a large gun, a large amount of armor. So they made the Tiger 1. The Tiger 1 was based off of the VK3601H, an older experimental heavy tank. Side by side, you can see the similarities. Their boxy hulls, the large amounts of armor that both of them have, interleaved road wheels, the armored driver's vision port, and the whole machine gun. The Tiger really was, in reality, just a bigger, heavier VK3601H. The prototype Tigers were called VK4501H or P, even though both the tanks were over 50 tons. Henschel's model won over Porsche's tank as it was more reliable and didn't catch fire constantly. Although Porsche, thinking they would win, as Ferdinand Porsche had a very good relationship with Adolf Hitler, now he was thinking they would win, so they were already making tanks. All of them except for one were converted into tank destroyers, the Ferdinand or the Elephant, which are basically the same thing. I think they are actually the same thing. Anyway, the one that wasn't converted was used as a command tank until it was destroyed. I'm pretty sure they added an extra 100mm of armor on the front of it. The original Tiger model, Henschel's model, had an additional armor plate, the Vorpanzer, to protect the tracks and the transmission against incoming fire, although it was quickly removed as it tended to swing into the tracks and jam them. Also, as everything in the tank, it weighed like a ton. It weighed multiple tons, actually. Anyway, to start off, the Tiger's story in the battlefield was not good. When one of the first 4 tanks that were sent into Russia broke down and couldn't be recovered. Although the Russians didn't really care about it for a while because all they saw was a box-shaped tank and the old German tanks and boxes until like the Panther, the other Panther, the actual Panther, and the Tiger one, but all the others are boxes, literally. The Russians eventually captured it and tested it. Yeah. Now, this first deployment really does show the whole story of the Tiger. It was incredibly unreliable. Because of the reliability issues I just talked about, and other issues that it had, the Tiger had many variations. There were 6 variants in 1942 alone, the first year it was ever used. These included the original ones, the ones with mudguards, then the ones with removable mudguards because they found that they were annoying. Smoke discharges were added, and other small things like that. Later on, in later years, the engine was replaced as the HL210 was incredibly unreliable. Where the HL230, I believe it is called, had the same sort of issues. It was underpowered and unreliable, but it was more powerful than the HL210. A new cupola was added later on as the bigger one was probably because it was more expensive to make, cost more iron late in the war. Germany didn't have any of that. Also, if you've ever played World of Tanks, if you hit that cupola, that the commander is becoming a red mist inside that turret. Later on, a commander machine gun, MG-34, for anti-aircraft purposes. The smoke discharges were later removed, and Zerot was added, and all these other things. Stowage box, the FIFO air filters, they were added and removed pretty quickly. They're only meant for, what's it called? They're only meant for the North Africa campaign. Anyway, at the time of its creation, in 1942, the Tiger was the most powerful tank on the battlefield. It outmatched most Allied tanks in North Africa and Russia in terms of gun, armor, and even some in terms of speed. The tank, while usually slow off-road, could go quite fast for its weight, a respectable top speed of around 45 kilometers per hour, which is faster than the 39 to 42 of the much lighter, cheaper, and common Panzer IV. And it's even respectable against the M4 Sherman, which I believe had a very similar, if not the same, top speed. Which is absolutely ridiculous, as the Tiger 1 is nearly twice as heavy as a Sherman, and around the same weight as an M1 Abrams, about like around 60 tons. Yeah, they're like 55 tons, I believe. But anyway, it was usually moving a lot slower due to this because of the tank's unreliability. In some cases, the speed was actually capped to 38 kilometers per hour maximum. And also the gearbox wouldn't like to go into the higher gears. If you did, it would probably shatter and break. If you've ever seen what do you call it? The diagram of it. It is horrendously complicated and over-engineered, as that is the entire tank in general. One of the reasons for the unreliability was that the pistons in the engine were so close together that the walls between them, piston walls, would crack and overheat due to the immense pressure and heat. Wait, I said that completely wrong. Wait, the piston walls would crack due to the immense heat and pressure, which would lead to the engine breaking and overheating, and probably exploding and catching fire, which isn't exactly great. You don't want an exploding engine, do you? Another one of these issues was the lack of driver training. This recount, I'm about to say, sums this up nicely. Regarding the overheating engines, the HL210 engine caused no troubles during recent time, which is the one they replaced, the HL230. All occurring breakdowns resulted from the low quality of driver training. In several cases, engine failures had to be put down due to the missing remote engine thermometer. 5 engines have reached more than 3,000 kilometers without essential failures. A good driver is essential to the deployment of the Tiger. He must have good technical training and has to keep his nerve in critical situations. The most remarkable aspect of the recent combat was that the Tiger could be deployed covering a 400 kilometer run. This proved the Tiger 1 can easily keep up pace with lighter tanks. Nobody expected this. This is literally quoting someone. The company Panzer Regiment Großdeutschland reported on their experience employing the Tiger 1 from 7th to 19th of March 1943. With the exception of known childhood diseases, the Panzerkampfwagen 6 has proven itself to be good. Already, it can be said its reliability is superior to the Panzer III and IV, which I doubt, when routine care and maintenance are accomplished. That means 1 day for maintenance of 3 days in action. Even the way it is now, the Tiger 1 can achieve exceptional success. A bit that interested me there was the fact that they both said it was reliable, which it wasn't. They only found that early in the war when they had multiple maintenance checks without constantly doing maintenance. Later in the war, that's when the Tiger's flaws would show, as it would be put out of its role. Its role is not what it was, as I think I'm talking about later. Anyway, the gun actually was quite powerful in World War II, not powerful now. Being able to pen an M4 Sherman frontally from 2 kilometers away, which is 2,000 meters. It utilized a type of round called APHE. It's not the actual name, but that's that sort of class of round. That basically, after penetrating the enemy armor, it would explode, causing extra damage and spoil, sometimes even blowing the turret off the enemy tank if it hit ammunition, which it probably would because it is a pretty. The later rounds had a hell of a lot of explosive filler, I will tell you that. It could even destroy the T-34, which was known for being incredibly heavily armored, at 1,500 meters. And if the round hit the driver's hatch, the hatch would collapse in on itself, which makes it even easier for the round to get inside the tank. The Tiger was designated as a breakthrough tank, as I said earlier, so the tank was quite good with the M4. So the armor was quite good with the M4 Sherman's 75mm gun not being able to penetrate the thick armor of a Tiger at any range. The front armor was completely impenetrable, as this image should show, which is the image of a patent Tiger Feeble. Now, the red areas, I believe, I don't actually have in front of me, is the areas where the Tiger can be penned. It's not, there's nothing in the front. The other circle, the massive one, is where you can kill it. It's absolutely astronomical. The M4 Sherman had to get inside, as you can see, in around 500 and 600 meters, which is completely and utterly insane. Later on, vehicles like the Easy 8, the T-34-85, the ISU-122, ISU-152, IS-2, also named the JS-2, but they had to change that for obvious reasons. Thank you, Joseph Stalin. The Sherman Firefly and other tanks of the sorts could penetrate the Tiger 1 at great distances, with the IS-2 apparently being able to penetrate a Tiger's front plate at around 1,500 to 2,500 meters, according to a certain Steven Zologa. He said that the Tiger 1 and IS-2 were equals below 1,000 meters, but above that it completely depends on the crew and situation. The British 17-pounder on the Firefly and the AC-4 Sentinel could quite easily penetrate a Tiger at long distances as well. I had to put the AC-4 Sentinel in. I'm Australian. I would probably say the Valentine Archer, but the Valentine's rubbish. Anyway, because of this, Tiger crews were trained to angle their armor to about 45 degrees, being nearly completely impervious to most guns that the enemies had. Engagements. The first time the Tiger was really used properly, not in Russia, when I say Russia, not those first 4 tanks, was in North Africa, where it was incredibly effective. One example of this was when 3 Tigers attacked an olive grove. They engaged the 3 M3 Lees at close range. 2 of the M3s were knocked out, don't know what the hell happened to the other one, but all the Tigers survived because of their incredibly thick armor. Actually, the first time a Tiger was officially knocked out by an Allied gun was in 1943, when a barrage of 6-pounder shells were fired at a single Tiger. This was before Tiger 131, mind you. Don't get them confused. That was later on in the war. Still 1943 though. The Tiger also was famously used in Russia during the Battle of Kursk, the biggest tank battle in history ever. The Tigers performed well, but quite a few were damaged, destroyed, and lost in battle. Overall, in combat, reliability issues became quite prominent quite quickly, and recovery of the heavy tank was difficult. It took 3 German recovery vehicles to move the damn thing. By the way, this thing is 60 tons. It's not really going anywhere. In emergencies, another Tiger would have to be used. This was incredibly unadvised, as it would cause the engine and transmission to fail. Because you're using an unreliable object to pull an unreliable object. The tracks also caused issues with the track overriding the rear. It says sprocket, but it's an idler wheel. This would immobilize the tank, and well, due to the high tension that tracks have to be under, it would sometimes be completely impossible to remove the track, resulting in the track having to be blown off. Just putting it out there, this is not confirmed, but it's cool, so I put it in here anyway. The Germans later found out that the Panther was about as reliable as a Tiger, a bit more reliable. To be honest, it wasn't that reliable compared to vehicles like the Stug 3G. The Tiger 1 proved a powerful tank, but there were other vehicles that the Germans had. They had the Stug 3G, a reliable and very common assault gun / tank destroyer. Also, pretty sure it's the most reduced German tank in the war. The Panther, a fast vehicle with angled armor and a long 75 or 76mm gun, I can't remember. It was infamous for being an absolute pain for the Allies. I'm pretty sure the first one that was captured was in 1944. The Panzer 38T, a Czech light tank used throughout the war, especially in Russia. The Panzer IV, a medium tank with a 75mm gun. The Panzer III, a smaller medium tank with a 50mm gun and lighter armor than the Panzer IV. Tiger II, which was a heavier armored Tiger with better gun and better armor, but it was less reliable. But despite all these other good tanks, the Tiger was called upon a lot to support advances, hold positions, support infantry, and destroyed heavily armored vehicles. That combined with its 1-6 kill to death ratio, one Tiger knocked out every 6 allied tanks. That's only tanks, and I believe that does include it being blown up by its own crews. Its rarity, its name, and its gun make it a legend. I mean, to be honest, if you came up to your mate and said, guys, I was killed by a Dwarfdorfwagen, they'll be like, what the hell is that? Oh, guys, I was killed by a Großtraktor. Oh, hey guys, I was killed by a Panzer 38T. It's boring. Hey guys, I was killed by a Tiger 1. It's a name that strikes fear into your enemy. There's a quote I heard once, I don't remember what it was, but basically says, the Tiger isn't a tank for the decade, it's a tank for the century. Or something like that. I don't remember what it was. But overall, Tiger, while good in 1942 and 1943, it was unreliable and an absolute nightmare to recover. The logistical issues were immense. It was over-engineered and over-complicated, too expensive, and took a massive time to build. But in the end, it is one of the most famous tanks in history. To be honest, it probably is the most famous tank in history. I can't think of anything that would be more famous than it. Maybe an Abrams, maybe a Sherman. But it's always... Everyone believes it's the best tank ever because of its legend in infantry in the middle of the war. But those people probably haven't fully researched the Tiger. In the end, in reality, the true nature of the Tiger is an unreliable, expensive cog of Hitler's war machine. It was good in its early life, but it was plagued with reliability and logistical issues. There weren't that many of them to make a difference, and there wasn't They came too late in the war to make any significant difference.